Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. I'm trying to get through my backlog of comics before I start my next big series, which is going to be a series of reviews on My Hero Academia and a few other manga. I really want to get to that, but I think I should try to get through my backlog so I kind of have a fresh slate for 2018. This is one that my the owner of the comic book shop I go to, he saw this, he picked it out for me without me even asking because he knew I've really been interested in the Duck comics lately ever since I read Duck Avenger, and I gave that a highest recommendation. It was the best comic I read for all of 2017, no contest. Well, when did I read Boca? When did I read My Hero Academia? I guess I read, yeah, I guess that My Hero Academia, I read that at the very, very end of 2017. But I'm going to count that as 2018 since that's when I started talking about it and reviewing it. So, uh, tangents, summa tangentum, summa triggerum, summa spoilerum. This is the number one Marmaduke fan show. Anyway, this is a recommend for Mickey and Donald Christmas Parade. Uh, like a lot of other IDW Duck comics, this is a collection of Italian comics, Dutch comics, and a few other sources all into one. And the thing, if you watch the Diversity in Comics channel much, you've seen roasts of several really poorly created IDW books. I don't have that much confidence in the new comics that IDW is making, but their Duck comics are some of their finest because they're importing these. You can't, it's really hard to mess it up if it's already a good comic. This is not, I haven't found any Duck comics that I love quite as much as the excellent Duck Avenger series, but the Scrooge story in this especially I loved. I am going to throw shade, though, on the colorist of the Secret Santa spell, Disney Italia and Digicore Studios. We'll see why. The other stories are okay. I don't have anything particular. Well, I didn't like the case of the scrambled formula that much, but overall, even though there's one that I didn't like that much, I think this was a really swell buy for me, and I dug it. So the Secret Santa spell. What I love about this is we've got Santa as kind of a cool old badass, and this is just a great Magica's Dispel versus Scrooge McDuck fighting over the number one dime type of story, but they do a really clever spin on it. So let's do storybook time with Uncle Number One Marmaduke fan. So Scrooge is protecting his number one dime as usual, and he's not doing anything for Christmas. And two Scottish bagpipers show up, and Scrooge is convinced that no true Scotsman would ever be willing to play the bagpipes without being paid first. So he activates his Virtuotron, something I'm sure that every SJW ever, this would save them so much work on Twitter if they could just have a Virtutron 3000 to sense the virtue of people outside their door. So after activating the Virtutron, it determines that they're actually criminals in disguise, and it's Magica Dispel and her boyfriend. And so far, I've only seen these characters in the Italian comics. In some of these Italian comics, Magica's family shows up from time to time, and she's got this kind of big dopey suitor, and Magica hates her entire family. But I've only seen them in the Italian comics, and I really dig these additions to the cast of characters because it adds some comedy and some personality to Magica as well. So Scrooge activates a giant fighting robot to chase off Magica, and now that he's convinced that he can enjoy his Christmas in peace, Magica's at home plotting ways to get Scrooge's number one dime. She's convinced that the number one dime is magic, and that if she can obtain it, she can get the Midas touch for herself. So Magica, I think it's her mother, her would-be suitor, and her niece. In one of the comics, they only show up magically once in a while to torment Magica, and she always dreads their coming. In this, they just seem to be visiting normally, and there's no mention of otherworldly magic shenanigans. But Magica's niece, Minima, who is also like Huey, Dewey, and Louie, a junior woodchuck, informs her that there is something known as the Secret Santa spell. And the Secret Santa spell is if you are a magic user and you write to Santa 7 years in a row asking for the same thing, then Santa will be hexed and he will be forced to give it to you. And here's the color thing I'm talking about. The colorists are using just a little bit of blue on top of black, and what that means is there's this really obvious bright blue spot that overlaps the black, and it's not hidden at all. If you were in Photoshop, it would be hidden because the screen would present this as black. But then in ink, it's like it's not a true black. It's sort of a ghostly light gray black, and then every time there's blue next to black, you can pretty much see the lazy little doop 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 that the colorist did, and it's all transparently obvious. It's not even like a glimmer thing where you have to move it to see it. This is something that should have been caught in the proofs. My OCD, guys. My OCD makes me good at spotting stuff in art that needs fixing, and it makes it hard for me to read a comic without getting triggered. So, anyway, Magica has written Santa 6 years in a row asking for the #1 dime, and this will be her 7th year, and she's so excited she flies off to find Santa herself. And at the North Pole, we meet an elf who's delivering mail to Santa, and Magica has gotten herself frozen solid trying to get there. They give her 50 cc's of hot chocolate stat to unfreeze her, and at first she tries to pretend she's on the nice list, but then when Magica creates her own problems. So the elf is ready to deliver her letter for her, and then she'll be all set. But then she wants to deliver the letter herself, so she goes on a rampage in Santa's workshop. And then we cut back to Minima feeling sorry for her aunt and wanting to do something to help her feel happy. And here's an example of just sort of a really sweet scene in the midst of the fantastical craziness, kind of to give us a little humanity. Says Minima, so much trouble, all that hatred over a stupid dime. It's not right, Granny. Why do grown-ups try so hard to be unhappy? And Granny says, I wondered about that when I was your age, too. So, why? I don't know. When I got to my age, I forgot. So, what is it? It's whimsy. It's light. It's polite humor with a grandma character and a niece character, but it's underscoring Magica's character flaw. She's a villainess who wants to rob Scrooge McDuck, and it just adds a little humanity to this cartoony adventure. And I like Minima. This is a fun little character. They could do something with this. She's the sweet little kid version of Magica Dispel, and she's actually got a genuine heart. So her idea is that she's going to get Magica the magic dime she's always wanted, but she's not going to steal from Scrooge. She doesn't get that Scrooge has sentimental value for the dime, so she figures if she just replaces Scrooge's dime, she won't be stealing. So maybe if you're a parent talking with your kids, this would be a good opportunity to talk to them about not making assumptions like that, not breaking and entering into property. But the character of Minima is well-meaning and doesn't think what she's doing is stealing. Therefore, the Virtutron doesn't detect any criminal intent. She replaces Scrooge's dime with a better one, and all these years, Magic has tried to obtain the magic dime. Minima walks in, picks it up, and poofs away. It's great. This is a twist on the classic plot of these stories, where it's like Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner. Magica Dispel wants the dime. Magica Dispel never gets the dime. Minima got the dime with ease. Meanwhile, in the North Pole, badass Santa Claus shows up to tell Magica Dispel what a very naughty girl she is. And they say this over and over and over again. She's on the naughty list. And they have this great magic fight, but Santa gets jinxed by the 7-year spell. So now Santa is under control of Magica Dispel. He shows up to Scrooge's workshop, and Santa's a much better magical user than Magica is. So he's able to turn all of Scrooge's money bin into pudding and obtain the dime. But Santa's got the decoy dime. Scrooge gives chase with Santa, but Santa only agrees to help him after Scrooge agrees to show a little bit more Christmas spirit and give his employees bonuses and treat Duckburg to a feast. Then Scrooge decides he's willing to help Uncle Scrooge obtain that dime again. So Magica, of course, is happy she's ever been because she's finally succeeded in obtaining what she thinks is the magic dime. Minima realizes that disaster is about to unfurl because Magica is about to throw a chocolate coin. Minima left a chocolate coin in place of Scrooge's #1 dime. So Magica is about to do her magic spell with a fake. Scrooge and Santa show up. There's some great, magical climax stuff. I'm going to skip a little bit. And then it ends with a giant chocolate volcanic explosion because Magica threw in the chocolate coin instead. It was a sweet little thing. Oh, I missed this. I skipped a page by accident. I skipped a page. Okay. That makes sense. So I missed this. Magica breaks out of her chocolate and she wishes Scrooge a Merry Christmas and he goes back. I'll have to reread this. Hey, what a pleasant surprise. What a Christmas surprise for me. And the people of Duckburg start to eat Scrooge's money then, because he promised the people of Duckburg a Christmas feast. So please, small bites only. So this was a fun, classic retelling of the Magica tries to get the number one dime story. I did not like the Mickey Mouse story as much. The Case of the Scrambled Formula, and I think I like Mickey Mouse generally. I mean, think about it. He's sort of that cutesy, folksy character. But I think this is an example where if you read it and you don't read it in his in person and all dressed up for the winter, if you just read it in your voice, he sounds like a much more identifiable character where you could feel a bit like Mickey Mouse. He's not, he doesn't have Donald's, angry temper or Scrooge's greed, but he's just sort of he's the folksy nice version of the everyman, while Donald is sort of the negative, grumpy version of the everyman. So I actually think that Donald may be more likable than Mickey because we like characters who are, flawed or have a temper or something, and it's harder for people to identify or like characters who are sort of warm-hearted and generally good. But even though there's sort of that sort of light dark comparison between Mickey and Donald, I still think they're both that very identifiable, very solid everyman type of guy. They're heroic, they're average, they're the average Joe. And I dug Mickey. What I didn't dig was some of the plot of this. So the Beagle Boys show up to steal kind of a cartoony formula, which can make anything hot. The Insta-Lotta Hot. And so sort of plot contrivance one. The scientist has only written one copy of the formula for Insta-Lotta Hot, and they instantly lose it, and it burns up. It instantly got a lot of hot. And so they kidnap the scientist to remake the formula they already paid for. So why didn't he have other copies of this? While they're doing that, Minnie is becoming a champion in not Scrabble, but Scrababble, where you have it's Scrabble, and they make a joke about how silly the word is that she went with. And Mickey takes during this time, even though he's kind of grumpy that Minnie blew off his date plans to go to this competition, he's proud of Minnie. He's celebrating Minnie in his mind. He's a good, solid guy, and the storytellers give us a moment to remind us that Mickey is a good, solid guy in the midst of this. So we're invested in him later when the action shenanigans happen. The professor. The Beagle Boys lock the professor in a cold room to convince him to remake the formula, and he busts out, and the ink freezes off the page and falls off, and they're all scrambled on the ground. Now, this is something I think could work as a little gag in a cartoon story, where the joke is, haha, it's a cartoon. The laws of logic and the laws of physics don't necessarily have to apply in this cartoon world, so we can do something like this. But the problem with this is this then becomes a key plot point. The letters have fallen off. They want to unscramble it. They're going to go kidnap Minnie since they saw her on TV winning the Scrabble competition. They figure she can unscramble it and give them their formula back. Why don't they go after the professor? Why didn't the professor have notes, even if they're kind of scrambled up notes? Why wouldn't he have that kind of stuff? So I think the problem is it's too big a plot contrivance. It's not Deus Ex Machina, but it's Plotus Ex Machina. This is obviously something they needed to have happen to make the plot make sense and have the Beagle Boys want to kidnap Minnie. But now I've got to accept that this really happened for the rest of the story. When this is what I like about Don Rosa. In all of his books, Don Rosa says over and over again that he views Donald Duck and Scrooge McDuck as human characters to the point where he's uncomfortable making jokes about them being ducks. And sometimes that'll mean that, that sometimes means that Don Rosa's story, they'll be almost weirdly humanized. Excuse me, cough squad. But it also means that Don Rosa doesn't go for really obvious jokes like, ha-ha, they're ducks. Ha-ha, they have bills. But this is an example of something I couldn't envision a Don Rosa type doing because he would view the characters as human. He would also, even if his adventures would have time travel or some sort of magical cartoon hijinks element to it, there wouldn't be something weird like this, where, oh, something cartoony happened, and that's just the plot point on which everything else rests. Yeah, I don't know. They needed like some sort of, even if they had like a little cartoon explanation, like the professor used his rubber ink formula to trick them, that would have been a little better, because we could at least have accepted that, okay, in the universe, there's a cartoony explanation for why this would happen. The professor is a genius. He invented a formula to deceive his captors, and then he ran off. I don't know. This irritated me, and then because that irritated me, then the rest of the story, it was harder to be invested. Because of that, Mickey and Goofy, they go to rescue Minnie. They get a funny cartoon horse. The professor recruits the police, and they go after the Beagle Boys, and they capture the Beagle Boys, and the police officers saw them out the wrong way. They're holding the saws the wrong way as they get them out. And there were more panels of that horrible blue and black ink, but whatever. Try to contain my OCD. Then there were a few there was a little one-page story that I thought was kind of cute, but they drew this dog weird. So the dog has one set of eyes, and then his iris is on the inside. This artist drew the dog as if he has two sets of eyes, so drew the little circle in there with the eyes closed, and then that with the eyes closed. My mind can't accept this. Yo, dog, I heard you like closing your eyes, so I put some eyes on your eyes so you can close your eyes while you close your eyes. Whatever. Then there's a neat little story of Donald trying to get a Christmas tree for Daisy. Daisy's worried about being a horrible auntie and that her nieces won't like her because she doesn't have a Christmas tree. You know, Daisy, as long as you don't tweet porgs at us all day, they won't think you're a terrible auntie. You're doing okay. So Donald goes to get a Christmas tree, and it's just a great little, poor Donald, he can't do anything right type of story. He tries to enter a raffle to get a Christmas tree, but Gladstone has two raffle tickets for the raffle blow into his face, so Donald just throws it away because he knows he's automatically going to lose. This gag would only work if you know who Gladstone is, and that Gladstone has uncanny luck. And I thought it was a little weird that Donald would give up that easily. Well, he gave up on the raffle, but he hasn't given up on getting the Christmas tree. So he's still that curmudgeon-y, never give up, plucky Donald. That's it. Donald is a plucky duck character. So he keeps going. He tries to steal a Christmas tree, gets chased by a big old dog, and struggles through the snow, almost thinks he's going to freeze to death, and he splats and just happens to land right in front of Daisy's house and offers her the Christmas tree, which has been ruined during his whole ordeal, and Gladstone has offered Daisy his beautiful Christmas tree. So Donald just ends his Christmas reading about how to control your temper. All right, I liked it. You know, it's a Donald story where he feels like Donald. It's one of the short little ones, not a big adventure, but I dug that. And a one-page gag about Scrooge I won't shout. So, I enjoy this. I really, the thing is that the Donald story was just a little 5-pager story, I think. So the only one I really liked out of this was the Secret Santa spell, which I thought was just a great take on the Magica Scrooge dynamic. And I liked the Badass Santa. I like this comic. IDW's Disney comics are the best thing they're publishing. I think this needs to be supported because I want these comics imported. So, I know it's been a bad year for comics. I know IDW's done a lot of SJW crap, but please support this part of IDW because we need to send the signal to the IDW that we want good imported comics from other countries. I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. I love you guys. Merry belated Christmas, I guess. Catch you later.